Hey, Brennan here. I wanted to make a little video. I wanted to start doing, because I'm in recovery and kind of working without sponsorship right now, and I do want to do step work. I'm kind of like around step three, um, just doing like work solitary. Um, and yeah, I just kind of wanted to like help myself with keeping up with my program, kind of like do more frequent reflections and writings on steps and traditions and things like that. And also just to keep myself writing and expressing myself. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about and this comes up a lot because I do work in service, and so I work with a lot of people who drink and like are sometimes they're kind of binge drinkers, definitely like social drinkers. And like yeah, I'll stop by and like hang out with them for a few seconds after work if I'm not feeling like I want to drink, and sometimes like my drinking does come up, and sometimes like people will ask me about alcoholism or ask me if I think they are, or like what makes an alcoholic an alcoholic. Like one of my coworkers was saying that his friend was calling him an alcoholic because he drinks to get drunk instead of for the taste, and it's like I'm just like yeah, in my head I'm like shut the fuck up, but in my mind I'm like and I mean it out loud I'm like yeah, alcoholism is personally defined. Like, only you can decide if you're an alcoholic. Like, I mean, but I did want to talk about alcoholism and like why I would consider myself one. I actually don't know. No, I have like a year and a half in AA. I'm just about to hit the 2 year mark of like when I decided that drinking was something I needed to deal with. Um, one of the big criticisms of AA is that it kind of lumps together alcoholics and problem drinkers, and some people believe that there should be a distinction. Um, and I don't know if I think there should be like a distinction and like the fellowship should be separate, because I think they do share a lot and can like really give a lot to each other as far as like sharing of stories is concerned. Um, but I honestly don't know if I fall into the problem drinker camp or the alcoholic camp. Um, And I honestly think only like I don't know if I could like it's always the question, could I learn to control my drinking? That's the question every alcoholic asks themselves. And like before I'd never been to an AA meeting, I didn't really know much about my own drinking or how I am as a drinker, and I never really thought about it. And I wonder now if like I could feasibly go back out there with the knowledge that I have and be able to kind of um, see where I'm at. I spent so long being really afraid of relapse, and I think that that's like a good thing, obviously, because my last bender almost killed me, and I was never really good at drinking, and it's scary. Like I'm scared, but I need to stop being afraid of a relapse because I do have a lot more information now. I have a lot more wisdom, and I have a support network, and I know how to get help, and I'd like to think I'd be able to recognize a bender before it happens, and I need to stop being afraid of relapse because that's the kind of thing that deepens the story. Like relapse, it's part of addiction. It's part of being an addict, and um, yeah, it deepens your story, and it can help. You can learn more from it, and I need to stop being so like scared of that. Yeah. So I honestly like what I know about myself as far as like my drinking goes and why I would call myself an alcoholic is like not only was I drinking to get drunk, because I think like a lot of people drink to get drunk. You drink to loosen up. You drink to get a little tipsy, to be like someone you aren't for a little bit. Like I mean that's the fun of alcohol. That's why people use it. I was abusing it. There's a difference. Um, I was using it to regulate my emotions, which works because it is a depressant. It is a drug. It does affect your brain and your neurochemicals and your serotonin levels, your dopamine levels. It affects all of that. So it definitely it does regulate your emotions. It can be used for that, but it's not smart, and it made me incapable of being able to naturally regulate my emotions. Which, and I already have certain mental health diagnoses like PTSD and complex PTSD that already make emotional dysregulation something that happens to me naturally. So adding the booze just really exacerbated the problem. Um, Kind of how occasionally once every few years I go on an acid trip. It's something personal that I do, and I don't take much. I take a tab because I'm a natural dissociative. I've always kind of had these moments where I come out of my body. I remember it happening a lot when I was a kid, um, and I'm always 10 times more crazy than anybody else because I think it exacerbates that natural separation that I experience. And yeah, I do want to talk later on about I'm not a traditional AA person. I do still smoke. I do still, I smoke pot, and I do still. I haven't done any other drugs since I had a couple slip ups with pills, but it happens. I had took one too many muscle relaxers when I got hit by a car, that kind of thing. Nothing that I would really consider restarting my day count over. Um, I'm the kind of person who believes in middle paths. I believe in progress. I've My relationship to pot has totally changed in recovery. Um, I know a lot of people who are doing more marijuana maintenance in 12-step programs tend to smoke more weed when they quit drinking, and actually the opposite happened to me. I smoke a lot less now, and I smoke very differently. Again, that was something I would use to regulate my emotions, and I have very strict rules. If I'm feeling any kind of way, feeling upset or anxious, I refuse to smoke. I write, I take a walk, I isolate other ways to kind of get myself out of whatever I'm experiencing. And yeah, I do want to talk a little bit more about why I think there needs to be more room in AA for middle paths. But I guess that's another talk. Um, yeah, I mean, I know what happened with my drinking was the emotional regulation, and also the escapism. Um, I was drinking to hide from my own life. I was drinking to not have to deal with anything. I was also, it's kind of I was half drunk all the time. I couldn't do anything. And it was I guess I was just experiencing this arrested development, and I think that has a lot to do with being trans and never having self-actualized as a woman. Um, there was still all this really leftover angst and adolescent resentment, and I was doing a lot of resentful and rebellious drinking at 25, at 26, and that's just not that's not normal. That's not healthy. It's not normal. Um, it's not just drinking to get drunk. Like I said, most drinkers, that's what they're doing. Very few people. I mean, yeah, people enjoy the taste of alcohol, but people also enjoy the effects. I don't think anybody could honestly say that they only drink it for the taste. Um, but I don't drink to get drunk. I drink to disappear. I drink to feel complete and utter abandon and oblivion. To come out of my body, to feel nothing, to be able to scream and burn myself and be crazy and just unbridled and scare the shit out of everybody. I am complete obliteration. Just and that drive extends to wanting to use narcotics and just nap for the next 8 fucking years and wake up and see what's going on then. And it's just yeah, these just kind of the pull of the appeal of disappearing out of my own life and dying without dying. Um, I think that's what makes an alcoholic an alcoholic. I mean, and that's what they say in AA. They talk about it. It's a spiritual disease. Um, as in dis-ease, not feeling easy spiritually. It's a warp. I have a lot of thoughts about. And I think AA is very interesting. I think the institution's interesting. I mean, it's not even an institution. I think The program's very interesting. It's something that went viral like 100 years before the internet. Like that's insane. And it's something that's still used today. And I think it's really interesting. When I read about like the alcoholic personality and the description in the big book of like the spiritual nature of the alcoholic and the egomaniac with an inferiority complex and all these really great like quotable things that are said and still resonate with so many alcoholics. It's really interesting to me just because I have an interest in psychology. I don't know if that's because I'm mentally ill or just because I like psychology. But there's so much overlap between like the alcoholic personality and like personality disorders and like the symptoms of them and like having this really black and white rigid thinking um, where you're either great or you're terrible and deserve nothing and there's no you can't really conceive yourself as being just a person who does good things sometimes and bad things other times, like you know normal ways of thinking. um yeah, so I mean alcoholism is like so complicated and like the first step of like the 12 steps says that like it requires acknowledging that you were powerless over alcohol and that your life had become unmanageable. And like the powerless point, like I was drinking and getting like physically injured and getting really sick and like I would just keep drinking. Like I would have the shakes for hours and hours and hours and like yeah, logically it's because I'm drinking so much and that's why I'm so sick, but I couldn't stop. Like I could not. Like you know, and that's what makes relapse so strange is because like I'm a bender person. Like I could be fine and have like a few beers like but then within a week inevitably I'd be on a bender and it's like they got longer and longer. Like initially it'd be like weekend, whatever. I go crazy for a weekend, but then like it became like I go crazy for like a long weekend, and then towards the end of college, I had like my last semester, I had all my classes run Wednesday and Thursday, so I had like 5-day weekends where I would just be drunk, like, and I had like just gotten out of a like a really abusive relationship, and I drank over that. Like I drank, and that's how I got over that relationship. And now, 5 years after that ended, I'm still dealing with the repercussions of the abuse that I really like put away and drank away and didn't deal with that are still cropping up and affecting my relationships today. So that's cool. Um, but yeah, the benders just got longer, and I used to be able to get away with it. I was drunk my senior year and got, the best grades all like my entire college career. I was functional for a long time and then I stopped being and my benders started getting longer and they would last for like a month and it got really hard to stop. Um, yeah, so I mean that's where like the powerless point comes in. And like the life becoming unmanageable, I mean that's easy. Like money was slipping out of my fingers, like my relationship was on the rocks, like I was trying to kill myself all the time, like I was like, calling people and like saying like I need help, like someone like please help me and like yeah, it was like a fucking mess. Like I don't know. So like step one was definitely really easy for me. I mean not easy, like definitely coming into an AA room is not. It's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do is walk into that clubhouse and sit there for an hour and just listen, just fucking listen. And I've learned a lot. I've learned how to listen. I've learned how to be less rigid in my thinking. My brain feels way more open and like flattened out, like not like draft papers, just like smoothed out. I used to feel really tangled before, and I mean, sometimes it's tangled, but I can feel like it's just being kind of straightened out. Um, I don't know. It's interesting. Like I think like a really good example of how much my thinking has changed, and I'm gonna close on this, is that I got an evaluation from work, and it wasn't great, which is frustrating because like I want to be a certain person in recovery, and when like that, like, I spend a lot of energy being that person and like trying to be positive and all this stuff and all the things that I like wasn't when I was using, and like which was negative and awful and just like a black hole of a person. And like when that's not coming across at work and I'm still putting energy towards it, it's like really frustrating. So I got like kind of a bad evaluation. And in the past, I would have just been like, I would have drank over it. I would have been like, oh, I'm awful. I need to quit this job now. They don't want me. I'm like terrible. But like now, I'm like, okay, I can see that way of thinking. I can see that I can go down that road of thinking that like I'm worthless and I'll never like succeed at a job. Or I could say, they're giving me criticism. This is an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to change my behavior, an opportunity to be better at my job and advance. And like that possibility would have like literally never occurred to me before. Like, and that's like that's sobriety and that's recovery and that's all the hard work I've been doing as far as like showing up to therapy and doing DBT and like just really like putting myself and my mental health and my not drinking first. Um, so yeah, that's just a little bit about step one and what an alcoholic is and what it's like to be powerless and have your life be unmanageable. So hope you all have a really great tail end of your weekend. Take care.